This is This Week in Science and Education, recorded January 4th, 2011, Episode 20, Science North. It's time for This Week in Science and Education, the Internet's premier show about all things science. Science news, new discoveries, health research, and a whole lot more. If you're a teacher, this show is aimed at you. We help you take this information and bring it into the classroom. On today's show, we are live on location at Science North in Sudbury, Ontario. All that and more coming up next on This Week in Science and Education. This Week in Science and Education is brought to you by Mueller Systems. Need a backup? Have some important documents and pictures that you just can't live without? Well, get them backed up. Go to muellerdata.ca/VROC for your 90-day free trial and get your data protected. And by Polycom, world leaders in unified communications. Go to polycom.ca for more information.
Hey everybody, we're here at Science North in Sudbury, Ontario. Sitting to my left is our guest today, Simon Strasser. Simon, thank you for coming out to the show. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Simon works here at Science North, and I think we should start by just having you introduce yourself and what it is you do here at Science North, and tell us a little bit about your position.
Sure. So I'm a staff scientist here in the space area. So my background is actually in astronomy. So for the last few years I've been working in science education, but before that I did research in radio astronomy. I did my PhD at the University of Minnesota and some trips through Calgary and London, Ontario, where I started my career at Western, and so now I'm here working with the public to teach them about astronomy and space.
Excellent. We went through an exhibit today that you were working on. Maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the newest things that we're doing here at Science North in the space area is to focus on the search for dark matter. So that's a really big new thing. That's something that's very important in Sudbury because of the research happening at Snow Lab. So we have this brand new theater that talks about the search for dark matter, and it's a very complex topic, so we have to find ways to engage visitors. So I've been developing as well an exhibit that goes with it that tries to sort of make these concepts interactive. So we have a big gravity well, which looks like a big funnel, and you can put ball bearings in there and play with gravity, and we have another experiment to talk about gravitational lensing and some model of Snow Lab, just different ways for visitors to grasp that complex science.
Let me ask a question on that point in particular. So one of the things that we're doing is working with educators to help them come up with ideas on how they teach science.
Yep.
So this is what you're doing professionally. How do you come up with these ideas on taking a difficult concept like dark matter and getting that out in such a way that the younger children are engaged, they're learning something, and I mean, we watched your part of the video, and you know, as a working scientist, I was watching that going, yeah, that's awesome. And I had a much better understanding of what we were talking about yesterday. So where do you go for resources on how you do that? This is what we're trying to get across from our educators.
Yeah, I think part of it is having a good team to work with, for sure. Like we here at Science North, you have lots of people with an interest in communicating science, so you bounce ideas off of each other, and often it evolves from something that is not that great into something really great when you get a few people sort of working together. But I think, in general, like whenever I go to a science center or visit a museum, I have the camera out and I take as many pictures as I can. I try to read the news every day with science articles. I try to stay on top of what's happening in research and just sort of try to bring it together, and suddenly you have an idea and just write it down, and keep it on file. And sometimes it's surprising what ends up leading to, an exhibit in the end. But it can be really difficult. Like that theater in particular, we actually sort of had to start over at one point because we got sort of down one way and we reached a dead end where it wasn't bad, but it wasn't really great. Yeah. So we sort of turned around and said, no, let's look at it from another angle again, and came up with this concept of a cartoon character and so on, which really helped with the overall show.
One of the things I know when we talk to teachers, right, and it's interesting because I think we start from different places than a science center might, because we always start with what we're told we need to get across to kids, and then try and find engaging ways of getting that across. Whereas you guys say, what's really cool, right, and interesting, and how do we get that across? How do you bridge that gap with teachers when they come in and they say, look, I have my science curriculum that I'm trying to get through. So do you consider those things when you're planning things, or do you then sort of work with teachers later and put things together? How does that process work?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our school programs are sort of separate from our exhibits. I mean,
Okay.
school programs are very much based on our curriculum,
Right.
and you just find ways to link it. I don't think it's actually that hard to find a way to
No,
link the
it's not.
exhibits to the curriculum.
It's not.
You just have to find, okay, how can I make this work? And then you, you sort of add to it. And I guess what we have here, teachers don't have quite as much as we have some resources to develop really cool activities. And we focus on a few school programs a year,
Mhm.
so we don't have to have a new lesson plan every day. So we can do some really cool activities and invest a little bit of funding for that as well.
Right.
Make it really cool.
You really cool lesson plans that you do day after day after
Yeah.
day. Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking now with Simon Strasser, who is one of the key components of what happens here at Science North in Sudbury. And Simon, give us a teaser of what's to come in the future. We saw some fantastic things today, and if you can, kind of point the kids and the teachers out there on where they can find out some more information about who you are and what you do, and the great activities that happen here at Science North.
Well, one thing that I would definitely point out is our website is a great place to get information. There's actually a really cool new area. Okay, no pun intended, because it's called Cool Science. It's a new area that we have where we actually, our staff scientists post a couple of blog posts every month at least, sometimes with videos, sometimes with slideshows, and always some text. We talk about different things that's going on, things that interest us, and we try to link it to experiences here, so when people come and visit, they can learn about it. So me in particular, I work on the 4th floor, which on that floor there's lots of changes happening, sort of smaller changes, so I'm working on a few ideas, which I don't quite want to give away what they might be, but one area I'm looking to redevelop is some stuff on space exploration, so some more stuff about Canadian astronauts and so on, and maybe some stuff regarding astronaut training that could be really cool. And then there's a lot of stuff happening on the 3rd floor. That's really a really big development, and I'm sure Bruce will talk more about that, so that's really exciting.
Super. And that website address again is?
It's www.sciencenorth.ca, so that's a good starting point.
Super. So
Yeah.
sciencenorth.ca for all the information about Science North. And Simon, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely, it's been a
Appreciate
pleasure.
your time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
So our next guest is Bruce Doran, who's a staff scientist here at Science North. Bruce, tell us who you are and what you do, and a little bit about your the job that you have here at Science North.
I'm one of the staff scientists here at Science North. I work in the northern ecosystems, which is currently the 3rd floor on the renovations, dealing with the...
And that's the sound we hear in the background.
That's right, some of the renovations. And it's the floor that deals with issues that have to do with ecosystems in the north, and also with the animals, the live animals. So I'm one of the staff scientists that has the live animals and uses or shows these live animals to kind of explain some of our ecosystem processes and to really get people to respect, the animals and also wildlife, and why we should protect them, what we should do and not do with them.
In fact, we had a chance to see some of the live animals here at Science North. We tried to get Thomas to go into the cage with the porcupine, but he ended up being a little shy.
So I have a question for you. We were down handling some of the animals, we were looking at the animals, watching other people handle the animals. One of the issues that you're trying to educate the public.
Let's cut that. Sorry. There's no way I can edit that out.
We'll try again. All right. So we're down in the temporary exhibit with the animals, and you're talking to us about these animals that are at risk. One of the issues is not to take animals out of the wild, and you're educating people by having taken animals out of the wild. So we talked a little bit about that, but talk to us, talk to our teachers that are listening and watching. Why is this a good way to help animals in the long run?
Well, first of all, the animals that we have here at Science North, we did not intentionally get them. They came to us at Science North for whatever reason. A lot of them were confiscations, or they're orphans or injuries, and can't be released back into the wild. So I don't want to get the impression that we went to collect these animals.
No, that's a really good point.
And the reason why we have these animals here at Science North, they're great ambassadors of their species and other species. And to have these live animals to allow people to actually handle, touch them, see them, you get that instant connection, with this live animal. And they are great ambassadors so that when people come out of here at Science North, they get a better appreciation of those animals and wildlife out there, and what they should and not be doing. For example, people love to get pet turtles. You know, that's one example. Through our discussions with members of the public, they realize, you know, if they get a pet turtle today, they will still have them for many, many years to come. And it's just to give people an appreciation of what's actually out there and what they should be doing and not doing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And one of the animals that we looked at was a red-eared slider.
Exactly.
And there's the classic example.
That's a classic
an
example.
introduced pet species.
Yeah, and that usually when I do a lot of these presentations, there's always a child around. So I usually
Right.
tell the child, you know, if you were to get a baby turtle, you would still have that turtle all the time. You have your own grandkids. Give them kind of that perspective.
Yeah.
And also, a lot of times what happens, the adults don't know these things.
Yeah.
They have no idea. They go by, you know, these exotic species out in the wild, and not in the wild, but in pet stores, and have no idea how long they live, how much effort it takes to take care of them, and what they should be doing or not be doing with them. So that's the general idea of having these animals. It's that instant connection. You get that instant credibility, respect, having these animals, and then it's a lot easier to get our message across when it comes to that.
Okay, thank you.
Colin?
I was thinking the fact that you've got animals in the science center, you don't typically find animals in the science center. When you go to some of the other ones that I've been to, it's it's material science, it's electronics, it's space science, and there's some talk of biology. But the fact that when we were in the butterfly garden downstairs, you know, flitting around, and they can actually land and get hands-on, and I just maybe talk a bit about the philosophy of science around the decision to have actual, animals that you can interact with, because I think it's really powerful.
Mhm.
And it struck me that, geez, I've never seen this anywhere else. So maybe just a bit of a I mean, you sort of did that, but
Yeah.
kind of where did it come from? Like, was that part of the plan from the beginning?
Pretty much
Yeah.
from the beginning, that the philosophy was there to have that. It's something quite unique to
It
science
is,
center.
yeah.
I mean, I've been to other science centers; they don't have that.
Mhm.
The only thing that's closest, maybe a zoo, but
Yeah,
even
yeah.
zoos, that they don't allow people
No.
to interact with the animals
That's
as
what I was
much.
thinking,
And we're a little bit different in the zoos in the sense that we allow that interaction, and we
Mhm.
felt that is something that's important to be able to relay that message. Something
Yeah.
that's probably missing maybe in the other science centers in the
It
other
is,
areas,
it is, yeah.
which is kind of unique. So it was a philosophy that earlier on
Mhm.
during the growth of science, that was a decision that was made. Obviously, we didn't have the same number of animals that we
Mhm.
have right now, and we don't accept everything. Obviously, we get calls once in a while for certain things, which would be great, but we can't.
Can't take 1,000,000 cats tomorrow.
No, and we wouldn't do that because it's not an animal of Northern Ontario, right? But
I found this wolf.
Yeah, exactly. So we do have our limits, and we know what our limits are. And obviously, we try to choose animals where people can interact with them
Mhm.
also. I say that, we do have a porcupine. Maybe a lot of you might think, oh, we can't interact, but there are ways
Mhm.
where public, they can actually pet the
The dancing
porcupine.
porcupine.
And it's just
That's
amazing.
interaction. Yeah.
And also, a lot of these animals are what people will see, as they go, camping,
Yeah.
or even sometimes around our house,
Sure.
skunks and things like that, and snakes. So it's a better connection
Mhm.
than if we have these animals that nobody sees, or
Yes.
they can
That's a good
interact
point.
with them. So that's the other thing. But it wouldn't, like the butterfly down, which is different than the
Mhm.
third floor. We're looking at species from around the world. So it's something a little bit different, giving people different flavors of what's out there. The sense I'm getting, especially when we talk about species at risk,
Yeah.
and species are disappearing and endangered, we're so much bombarded by these species from Africa
Mhm.
or Asia, like the
Yeah.
panda, and we keep them in our own backyard
Sure.
here in Ontario and Canada. So having these species here, and we do have some that are species at risk, gives people a better appreciation that, we should be doing something in our own backyard and be
Mhm.
protecting these living things. So that's maybe another idea of why we have these.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And when we talked to Jackie Litzkus about a month ago,
Mhm.
she pointed out there's only one species of turtle in Ontario that's not threatened at the moment.
Yeah.
So either a species at risk or threatened with extinction.
Mhm.
One is a turtle
Out
species.
of 8 or 9 species that we know. Yeah.
Every other species is at risk. So one of the points that you touched on here was how different you are, Science North is from the approach. But we talked earlier about interactions with other facilities,
Mhm.
other science centers, other museums. And you had an example that you were going to tell us about some of your work with your recent trip, and how reaching out from just a single point is an important part of Science North. So can you tell us about that?
I was approached by Science North a few months ago to do a trip to Kenya to go to an orphanage for animals. It's actually called the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, and it's in conjunction with IMAX. And we were also looking at developing a traveling exhibit, because we also develop exhibits here at Science North that will then be leased out to other science centers, and one component was about elephants. So it was an interesting and unique opportunity for me to learn what scientists and other people are doing to protect some of these species at risk, in this case in Africa, and then use this information and what I've been learning to help develop this new traveling exhibit, and also promote some of the information about the IMAX. So, I mean, I'm specifically more with Northern Ontario animals, and that's my section, but given the opportunity, there's definitely no problems to go somewhere like Africa, learn about something, bring it back here, and then have my own unique perspective about this animal and why this animal is a species at risk. And when we look around the world, whether you're in Africa or Northern Ontario, it's the same reasons.
Yeah, a lot of the
Same
problems are
reasons.
all the same.
They're all the common.
It's us.
But thinking globally and acting locally is
Exactly.
really does make sense.
Exactly.
A lot of the people that will be listening or watching to us are in Southern Ontario. Are there places like this in Southern Ontario that teachers can go and interact with species, or are they pretty much looking for a trip up to Sudbury?
Well, obviously we would like them to come to Science North. Everybody's invited to Science North. No, there are certain centers, smaller centers, zoos, even the Toronto Zoo will do some interaction with the public, but it's their mandate is different.
Yes.
Than ours. Their mandate is more with the protection of the wildlife and the animals. And yeah, there is an educational component, but their mandate's a little bit different than us. So, which makes it a slightly unique experience. So, would I be able to tell you specifically if there's something like Science North right off the top of my head? No. I haven't seen something where, I'm allowed to hold a snake. I'm actually from Granby. We have the Granby Zoo, and I don't know how many times I go around and I ask the keepers, can I hold a snake? And no, even if I explain to them I'm a biologist and whatever. So, whereas here, that's something that we can do with visitors, which is kind of unique. And that's something that people come out of Science North and say, wow, I did this. I saw a flying squirrel live, and I touched a flying squirrel afterwards. It's something they can share with their family. It's something they can share about that experience, that animal, that when they go out and they go camping, they make that link. They make that like, oh yeah, remember, we were talking about this animal, we should be doing this. Every little animal that they see, whether it's one that was at Science North or not, they do get some type of experience, and they get that connection that probably you wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I find that that's especially important for people that aren't as connected to nature. Here in Northern Ontario, a lot of us like to go camping in cottages, but in Southern Ontario, where it's a little bit more difficult to have that connection with nature, it's important. It's important. Why should I care about that snake? Why should I care about that toad?
Right.
What does that mean to me? And having that connection with them, especially for a child that lives in downtown Toronto, is important. Because by better understanding their connection to this, why do we need to do this? And that's what I tell certain people. Some people aren't interested in bugs. They're not interested in the animals. They're just not. But I tell them, by doing what we're doing for these wildlife, these animals, we're ensuring essentially our survival as a human species. So if we can protect that little toad, in a sense, we are also doing whatever we need to do to protect our species.
Yeah.
We're talking with Bruce Dorr, one of the staff scientists here at Science North. Bruce, you talked about the different animals that came into the facility here, and well, you didn't accept everything through the door.
No.
Fairly far-reaching show. Is there anything you're looking for that our listening audience?
Milk snakes, hognose snake, fox snakes, some of our snakes. The problem is with some of these species at risk is one of the reasons why they're at risk is because people are taking them out and they're not supposed to. And all these different species that we have, especially on reptiles like snakes and our turtles, are all confiscations. So they're inward. And the way that we can replenish some of them is through exchanges with zoos and other science centers that will also do that. We do get calls once in a while. Somebody will say, hey, I found a blinding turtle or a milk snake. I say, sorry, we won't accept it. If it's fine and you can
Yeah.
release it back in the wild, that's the more important message.
That's the
We're
more
not
important
gonna-
message, yeah.
So, but definitely, we do have certain calls to certain zoos and centers that we are looking for certain animals that we're looking for. So if any centers have these type of animals that are more than willing to donate to Science North, I'd be more than willing to talk to those individuals.
Thank you, Bruce. And how can people find you or get in touch with you?
Same thing, at the Science North website, there's actually a link, contact, and they can get all my contact information from that link.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your time today, coming on the show. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All the best to Science North. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Here we are entering into Science North, into the exhibit area.
Well, okay, so we have a glass up there, and one is a meteorite and one is a volcano. And the theory was Sudbury was created by a volcano. No, it was recreated by a meteorite. There was some controversy with that. When we were building Science North, lo and behold, we found this.
So it's a volcano.
And this is evidence of a meteorite. It's a shadow cone. And you can see some of them here as well. And people will be touching it, and that's why it's nice and shiny. But we found those throughout our building, which was absolutely fantastic to have that.
So this then helped establish the fact that some of the
Not
geology-
Science North itself, but yes.
Right.
But for Sudbury, yes, that it was a meteorite.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean, like in the area, I think the geology, some of it is, or was impacted by a meteorite impact at some point.
And we were lucky enough when doing the Science Center to actually uncover some of
Yeah.
the shadow cones, so
Yeah.
within a rock.
Had it-
So when
had it
that
been seen
happened, they
before?
put some pieces
Was
of
this-
plywood down
They've
and
been
said,
seen before, yeah.
do not touch this rock, because we need to show this to visitors, and it's pretty cool. We do have another science center 5 kilometers west of here, and that is our Earth Sciences Center called Dynamic Earth. And there's such neat stuff there about the Sudbury Basin and the creation of the basin, and a whole lot of stuff about meteorites, not only in Sudbury but around the world. And it really tells the Sudbury story. It's some really neat audiovisual opportunities there as well, but really learning about the basin and understanding how this meteorite changed the face of Sudbury and how it brought the minerals up to the surface. Absolutely really neat to hear that story.
Our next guest is one of the directors, if not the director.
One of the directors.
One of the directors. Nicole Chasson is here. Nicole, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about your role here at Science North and some of the exciting things that we've seen today and that might be coming up in the future.
Well, sure. I'm the Director of Education and Northern Programs, so responsible for all of the educational programs that happen here, but also throughout Northern Ontario. It is Science North's mandate to provide hands-on, high-quality science experiences at our centers in Sudbury, both at Science North and at our Earth Sciences Center just a few kilometers down the road. But we do bring programs right across Northern Ontario. So we take our beautiful colored van and we bring some of the programs right into the schools. So keeps us very busy. Northern Ontario is vast, so definitely we have lots to do and lots of work lots of mileage to make to be able to reach the people. And one of the things that we do at Science North, we love to host classes and teachers from across Ontario. We offer special programs. We talk about links to the curriculum, and the general Science North visit in itself is pretty cool, as you would have seen in some of the clips that you took today. But the school programs themselves are all based on curriculum. And we have a school visit guide.
Just go to one of the questions that you brought up earlier about how we integrate, or
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe just be a bit more explicit in that. Like, can you give a specific example that the teacher may go, "Oh no, I didn't know they did that." Like, give me, for instance.
Our school visit guide, which is on our
Oh,
website
okay.
at sciencenorth.ca, where you can download the guide, has a grid
Yes.
with all of the curriculum, the science curriculum outcomes,
Right.
and clearly defines in that grid what outcomes that particular program touches. And we have programs from JK all the way to grade 12, so the teacher can go in and look at that. Now, most of our programs are 50 minutes, so when a school comes into Science North, They can actually book 2 school programs, and there'll be additional time to do general visits, but there will also be times to see some of these really neat object theaters. And we have also a discovery theater where we do live science shows. So you can plan your visit and almost have no free time if you wanted it that way, but definitely.
Which is important for some
teachers.
Classes.
You want them busy. You want to know where they are, right? So that gets booked, and they follow that schedule.
So one of the things to that point, some of our teachers at least won't have the opportunity to come up here. Are there resources on that webpage that teachers can use if they're not able to physically come to Science North?
We're actually developing and going to launch soon part of our website for teachers. So there's going to be a whole bunch of activities that you can do that are probably related to some of our school programs as pre and post activities, but certainly are activities that stand on their own.
Right.
So you can access that. But you know what? People think that Sudbury is really far away. I mean, it's 4 hours north of Toronto, and as the highway is getting double laned, you can almost do it faster, right? But the reality is that we offer programs. We get a lot of people from down south, classes, and they do our overnight program.
Right, I was going to ask you about that because of being from, quote unquote, down south. Those are the brochures we get advertising this overnight program. Could you talk about that a little bit? Because I never did it, but it looked really cool.
Well, we do it year-round, but it seems to be more popular in May and June as a year-end school trip. And so instead of coming when it's really, really busy during the day, they come at night. So they arrive, they start the program at 7 o'clock at night, and we run programs right through 7 o'clock the next morning. I'm not talking like do it till 11 and then go to bed. You don't go to bed. Like, you can bring your sleeping bag, if you can't handle the dare of staying up all night, we will have a little bit of a restful area. But we run hands-on science programs right through. We'll include an IMAX film in there and some live science shows. And they are geared to the different age groups starting at grade 4.
Right.
And it's a really quiet ride home.
You have an overnight program for grade 4.
Yeah.
You are insane. That is awesome.
You get a quiet bus ride on the way home.
Very. Yeah, so everybody wants a Thursday, right? Because they want to stay up all night, drive home on the Friday, and then have the weekend off. So it gets booked, the Thursday nights get pretty fast, but it's an amazing program.
It looked amazing when I looked at it.
I'm thinking if I have an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old, I'm just sending them every night.
But as a teacher, you don't have to worry about accommodations, right?
Yeah.
So you're coming. We expect the teachers to be with the groups,
of course,
and they can share the supervision. So some of them can have a little snooze, but it's a great program, and really, I say it's absolutely worth a 6-hour drive to do this.
I agree.
And we get schools that come year after year.
Right.
It's the grade 6 program or it's the grade 8 program, and every year they come back.
That becomes their trip.
That sounds like a really exciting experience.
Yeah.
But I had a question for you that came out of talking to Simon and Bruce. Living in Sudbury, when you talk to people about Science North, parents inevitably love coming with their kids. And so, we watched pieces of a couple of films today, we're doing exhibits, and they're really engaging. How does Science North manage to engage toddlers through parents and grandparents? So what are you doing that makes the parents, like I rode just down the lake from here, and we'll be sitting, and so you see Science North, and somebody will say, the topic will come up, like, oh yeah, we were at Science North last night. That was awesome. And so the parents have a blast. How do you manage to keep the kids engaged and the parents excited so that they're walking away from this experience and everybody's had a good time?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because most people look at Science North and they say it's a place for families. But when they come, sometimes now they start saying, I need to come without my kids.
Right.
Because when the kids are there, you focus on the kids, you focus on them having fun, and in a way you become the mentor, right? Our signage helps parents become the mentors and do the science with the kids, right? And get the aha, oh my gosh.
Makes mom and dad look smart.
Absolutely, and we're all for that, right? So that happens. We saw some object theaters, a very complicated theater on dark matter. Well, it's a very complicated topic, right? But we are science communicators. We're about making complex science simple for people to understand. So we use the cartoon characters in the show so that the kids kind of, keeps them busy, but the science, the parents get the science. So you try to do things at different levels, and our signage is made in a way, actually the concept is called ACE. The first page is about action. The second page is about confirmation. This is what you need to do. And the third one is the explanation. So, kids might look at the first, second page, I'm done. The adults can go through the explanation section of it. So you can get in depth. Now, Science North, when it started, and still is at this point though, a third generation science center. And that kind of created like a bit of a triangle. It's about the exhibit, it's about the visitor, and it's about the scientist, right? And so it's that triangle that creates the true deep experience, is making that scientist available to the visitor and sharing that knowledge of the scientist and bringing it to the level of wherever the individual wants to go.
Right.
And that's not always the case in science centers, because you don't always have as many people as we have, our Bluecoats and our staff scientists on the floor, ready to engage with the visitor.
That's a good point. There's lots of them out there, right? I mean, the world wasn't even very busy today, but I saw the Bluecoats everywhere, and that actually struck me that, and first of all, very often they're research-based scientists originally or have science backgrounds. Absolutely. They're not just people who get hired because they are interested in doing the job here. Yeah. So that's really cool, but in talking to them, they're also excellent communicators and being able to quickly on the fly ascertain where somebody is in their understanding and then help them get deeper. That's amazing that they can do that. It's very cool. It's a neat model.
I've actually hired undergraduates to work in my lab based on the fact that their CV had, I was a Bluecoat. So, you have a number of undergraduate, or, people that either grew up here or they're working earlier at university, and I'll get them apply for a position in my lab and, chat about what their interests are and what their background are. And one of the women I hired, early in the conversations, well, I've worked as a Bluecoat for the past couple of done hired. And if she can do that job, and assuming, if she'd been a Bluecoat, she did the job, then I was perfectly happy to have her in the lab, because that's one of the strengths that's known in the community. One of the strengths of the Science Center is that group of staff and how good a job they do of working with people and explaining difficult concepts. And so if you've got that on your CV, I'll hire you for my lab.
The community thing is huge too, because it's my impression that the Sudbury community is so proud of what Science North brings to the community. Like, you don't hear the same talk about other science centers as you do as someone from the area about Science North. I think it's expanded beyond the boundaries of just this building to the whole base. It's really, really cool.
Well, and you do a lot as a center to interact with the community, and I think that reflects in the community's opinion of the Science Center. It's not an isolated thing into its own.
Right.
And I think Laurentian is actually trying to learn from that. How do we reach out more to the community?
There's a lot of people can learn from that.
And get the community engaged in the university, get the university engaged in the community the same way that Science North.
Well, I mean, we have an important partnership with the university. Of course, we work with scientists, and they're on some of our advisory committees and so on. So we always involve people from the outside in helping us develop some of these object theaters that you've seen and so on, and some exhibits. But we also are in partnership with Laurentian because we offer a science communication diploma program. It's a postgraduate program where people who are interested in communicating science take this one-year course, and co-directors, a person from here, scientists from here, and a scientist from Laurentian University. And we've had some amazing people really from around the world who have participated in this program and who have just expanded their ability to communicate science. Some of them are journalists, some of them might be people working for a pharmaceutical company who need to get the language to communicate with the people, right? So very popular, we're in our 4th or 5th year, so we're creating these great science communicators that are going out around the world, being able to talk to people at their level. And we're really proud about that. And we've been able to hire some of these people because, of course, great for us. They studied in Sudbury. They may not be necessarily from Sudbury, but they've got that background. In addition to being scientists, they've gone through the science communication.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Samantha yesterday, did she not go through that program?
Yes, absolutely.
Who was our guy that stole that, right? So
And we've talked about trying to get David Pearson on the show.
Right.
One of the people behind that whole science communication program.
So important.
Yeah.
Well, Dave Pearson is not only an important, the co-director of science communication, he is like one of the developers of Science North.
Right.
So, I mean, great person to be connected with science communication.
We're talking with Nicole Chasson from
Science North here in Sudbury, Ontario. Nicole, maybe you could talk a little bit about the construction that we've heard as we've been wandering throughout the facility and what we can expect in the next few months from the result of that.
Sure. Well, you know, we're so excited about this renovation. Science North is 26 years old now, opened in 1984. And, you know, when you have live animals, you build some pretty major habitats that are quite expensive and so on. And so the third floor, where we have our natural sciences and northern ecosystems, hadn't changed a whole lot. So complete renovation of the third floor. Animals are going to have a new habitat. They're really going to be put in their own ecosystems, and the scientists are going to be within those areas and really expanding on that connection between the habitat and the animal and the wilderness. So that's really great. We've got some new shows coming on. We're doing a major update on our climate change show with David Mercer, who's the narrator. So that's going to be really great. We're going to be developing a media studio up on level 4, some brand new technology stuff.
Is David Rick's brother?
Yes, no, sorry, you're right. Rick Mercer. Oops. Talking about Dave Pearson, Rick Mercer, absolutely. Thank you for catching that. But, you know, a lot of changes in our Valet Tavern, where we saw at the 4D show. We're putting together a new show there about wildfires. So there's just so much going on that evidently, if people have been here before, they definitely want to be coming back. And you know what? Even if it doesn't change, it is always
still
different.
good, yeah.
Because it changes because you make the experience.
Yep.
You take it to the next level. So yeah, we're inviting everybody to come. Our school programs change all the time as well. So we'd love to have you.
Nicole, I'm pretty sure I speak on behalf of Colin Thomas when I tell you that we just really enjoyed our time here today, and we appreciate your hospitality. And you did a great job of explaining dark matter, because as I sat there, I thought, I understand this now, you know, and if you can make me understand it, you know you're reaching out to those lower grades. So.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed your
that,
visit.
and,
Pleasure to host you.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Aren't you tired? We have to be on the lake before the sun comes up to beat the wind.
What about that book you brought?
Not this one? It's more like poetry. You still interested?
I guess so.
Okay. Now, here's a good part. By the shores of Gitchigumi, by the shining...
Gucci Gumi.
Well, Gitchigumi is an Ojibwe word that means big body of water. That's it, right out there, Lake Superior. Okay to go on? Okay. By the shores of Gitchigumi, by the shining big sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon Nokomis, nursed the little Hiawatha.
Hiawatha? That's a movie.
Yeah, but it's based on a book, Song of Hiawatha by Henry Longfellow.
This is Quillen, the porcupine. He's about to get fed. He looks like he's already chewing on something.
You know, what's really cool about Quillen, well, any porcupine really, is that one of the things that we like to do is dispel myths. And people think that porcupines throw their quills. And in fact, porcupines don't throw their quills. They basically raise their quills so that if anything tries to touch them, they would actually touch the end of the quill, and the end of the quill has a bit of a hook, and that's how it gets into the skin. So if your dog comes home with quills, it's because he's actually touched the porcupine. But one of the things that they also do is they fling their tail around if they feel they're in danger, and often the dog would have gotten hit with the tail. And so as soon as the quill hits any skin, it actually goes into the other animal. So that's their method of defense, but they actually don't throw their quills.
So the quill comes, there's quills in the tail as well. I didn't know that. Hi, Quillen. He's coming over to say hi.
You may or may not know, but you can actually pet a porcupine. You just have to pet it the right way, which is front to back, and don't touch the tail.
Yep, okay.
And when the quills are down, it really is very furry.
Now I broke it. Just call me George Bush. Yep, that's Thomas, everybody. Who else would it be?
Still broken. No, still broken.
Reset it, you sort of have to find the spot there.
Oh, you gotta find the spot.
I'm not very good at it, but you can, it's an unstable equilibrium, right? So,
Oh, so it's not exactly right in the middle then.
well, it is in the middle. It's just that
Media's really good at that.
if it gets offset, right, it'll run away from the equilibrium point.
Thomas broke it.
So you have to get it just the right place.
I cannot believe how long people will sit there and try and get that on there. Tenacious. They'll just sit there and get it on.
Yeah, I'm not.
And that's simply
What do you have to say for yourself?
Yeah, I broke it.
Is it more stable when
Because
it's, when
it
it's
was
spinning?
clearly levitating before we did it.
It starts to spin on its own sort of once it's on there, but you can't spin it while you try to set it on there. I'm not very good at it.
Just can't take him anywhere.
Yeah, well,
I leave there. People will put it on. You'll come back and it'll be on.
You have to stay here until that ball is on there.
What we've clearly learned is that if you give people a challenge,
Yes.
they will just go to it. And Science North is that kind of place. It's, touch it, do it, experience it, and figure it out kind of thing. So it's pretty cool.
Sounds like you talking, Colin.
No, that's it. That's the challenge is key. That's the educational part, right? It's getting them in just out of the comfort zone where they know they can succeed, but they have to try to do it.
Can we not record at a location on this trip that doesn't have drilling in the background?
Isn't that funny?
2 days in a row. But we recorded one of our podcasts in my office, and they were drilling in the walls.
Sweet
There you go. It's
sounds of what?
Of renovations, the suites.
Sweet hum.
Sounds like money.
Progress.
Sweet hum.